Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and today I'm going to do this video on. It's mainly about Maggie Sawyer. Um, she got I guess similar to what was it be the FF where Alicia started to get some more light while Kirby was on the book, and she went and met the Silver Surfer and kind of saved the universe. And similar, she kind of talked. She midwifed Adam Warlock into this earth, into this universe, and from that point, outside of like Jimmy Olsen and Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen, which was a series, or Lois Lane, slowly after those books kind of died out, the stories, the characters, the personal characters would get these private lives things in the pre-crisis DC universe. They wouldn't really get like a solo type story. It was always a basic story that was around the hero. Now this one isn't a story told from Wings isn't a story told from Maggie's perspective. This one is a Superman story with a subplot that becomes the main plot, right? So I think in one of the issues before that we hear that Maggie Sawyer's daughter is lost, possibly heading towards Metropolis, and we get to see in the early issue Maggie Sawyer's daughter is kind of is picked up by is going into this weird thing that's going to happen to her. So this will lead us to a Maggie Sawyer story. Now she was introduced in Superman #4. She was the tough as nails cop for the special. I think the name will come up in here, but it's like a special criminals unit where they would deal with the supernatural and super powerful, or people with a lot of gadgets and stuff like that. And she kind of worked well with Superman, and she was kind of a hard boiled type character in the DC universe. So she had all the cool. She'd come out with the skirts, some decent legs and some shades, and always smoking, a chain smoker. And this is where we would reveal a bunch of her character in here. This issue has a backup story with Maggie. I mean, if I have time, I'll go through the first story. Not even though I like the Newsboy Legion and the Guardian. It's there is some things that's kind of iffy on, but I do like the backup story. So we'll get to that in a second, right? Or maybe not a second. Maybe in 15 minutes. I think this take 15 minutes, right? So we're introduced to the story Wings, right? And this, I think Karl Kesel was kind of a little more heavy-handed as far as the inks go, but there's some good parts. Obviously, the backgrounds look gorgeous. It's a little laminated here in the face type of thing, right? So Superman is hearing the silent alarm go off, right? And the Metropolis police force kind of asked Superman to help them out because there have been these robberies that are going on in the town. Stuff that Superman wouldn't normally take care of, but they asked since they have no sort of way to figure it out, Superman would look into it. So we get a little noir Superman stuff that Byrne does, which is always cool. And Byrne always likes the solid blacks, but when he can, show the S. And we get this creature with wings that fly past, and Superman's like, "Whoa, that's it's pretty fast, right?" So you gotta up the ante. You can't just have a character. This is one of the problems with a lot of characters where they introduce other characters and they move very slow. And a lot of wing characters, nobody writes them as fast. Like I think Byrne, tried to show that Angel was pretty fast, but ultimately the wing characters are always seen like, even though we can't catch a pigeon or something like that, people look at people characters with wings as delicate, so and don't think of them as fast. Byrne kind of really plays the wing characters fast. So this wing creature zips by Superman, and as Superman's about to snag it, it drops these lead foils around. Now this is something that was done in World War II to hide from radar. And once Superman gets, of course, he gets through that with ease, but the character's already shifted and gone. It's not a nice transition. It's a neat move. There's only one perfectly disguised in his getaway. All I know is he's out there somewhere alone, right? So we transition from one panel to the next, which we go to Maggie, sad about her daughter. And we see Maggie and her girlfriend, which is not plainly stated in there. We see they have their roommates and they have this connection. They're talking about stuff and say how spunky and resourceful she is, right? And he said she gets pushed to get Superman involved, right? But we hear it says babe, right? And that's usually a sign that people are going out. Right, that's as close as we get to Satan that these guys are in a relationship. These two ladies are in a relationship, right? So we go in there, and that creature who's a kid is with this character called Skyhook, right? And he's upset, saying, "Hey, you used the foil. That's not going to work again against Superman. No chance of that. The element of surprise is gone, right?" So as all the commotion and him whacking at these kids, we got Maggie Sawyer pops up. And one of the cutest kids sitting under Byrne's pencils. Right? And then we have Maggie. She's trying to locate Jimmy Olsen. And there's a surprise here. There's some surprise we haven't seen yet with Jimmy Olsen's mom, where Maggie's kind of surprised when he sees her. We don't see her face in this thing, right? But she says she needs Superman. Now, at this point, Lois is pretty upset after Millennium. She found out some things about Superman and Clark Kent she's not happy with. So they're having this long talk. It's one of those scenes that's similar to like a breakup. And Superman is kind of just following her around. Clark Kent's kind of following her around, getting the business. And while she's going on and on, the hypersonic whistle that Superman hears it. He's like, "What am I gonna do if Jimmy's in real trouble?" and Lois realized she'd been talking forever, so that's gonna put him more in the doghouse, right? So Superman jetted off using his super speed, flies off, and this is the difference. This is all it is. It's just having a brief, dynamic moment with Clark Kent. Sometimes it's using the power, sometimes not. But the key to this is not killing yourself with Clark Kent stories. It's just having something visually powerful with him, because ultimately he would be kind of a, he wouldn't get any kind of light. It would be kind of, how much little story can we put to this? So Byrne hasn't overloaded it with Clark Kent's story, but he does have a cool visual that happens, which I think the Superman movie showed, where Superman can't, obviously there's no phone booth close by, so he uses the revolving door to change. So that's a very dynamic Superman to Clark Kent scene. So he's like, "Hey Maggie, you can go through the police," right? He's like, and he's like, "Nope." He's calling him as a mother, and then what? Superman has no idea that she was a mother. Jimmy's there, so we get to see her history, right? We get a little bit of noir thing, but we kind of stepping out the noir to get to her history, right? She was married to James Buchanan Sawyer. He was the captain, and they connected. She was still kind of confused about things, but since they had such a connection, they fell in love. And then as a married couple, that didn't work. But as working in the police, it worked out, right? But at home, it was terrible, right? And then she got pregnant, right? So that kind of calmed things down. But her husband stopped coming home, right? So it's kind of a separation in there. So she has had it. So she Goes out on the town, and I guess she told him what she was going through, and they're about close to a breakup, but he uses that against her. And it says here, unfit mother, obviously because she's developing same-sex relationships. So she would appeal. She stopped appealing because she didn't want her daughter to go through it. And it was for the last time in life I ran away. Right? She came to Metropolis, worked her way up the force here, and started a whole new life. But now Jamie has run from Jim, right? And needs her help finding her, right? And she also says the best bit in here, and obviously this is a struggle that people go through, is that she says he's a big, boisterous, friendly kind of guy. You'd probably like him, right? Saying that it's not really a total jerk. It's just, he's just a normal guy, right? So she brings him in there. He's starting to be nice, but we know how terrible he is. We start hearing these snaps, right? Right? And he's bringing in this, and it's going to bring him to something real wacky. But we see all these kids flying around. And the inks here are just beautiful, right? That's really nice. I think he kept the grit in there. He didn't clean it up too much. A lot of times we see everything really slick, but we get some of the grit in here, which is important, right? And on Skyhook, right? So, I missed it. I went too far, right? She's like, what are those balloons? We've seen kids going around here. She's like, not with it. But then she's like, nope, gonna put her through it. So Superman's going around, can't find anything on the kid, right? And then he's thinking about what's going on there. But then he sees the winged prowler, right? And he catches up with the kid, right? This is a great shot there. This is all this stuff. It's amazing, right? And he takes it back to the police, right? And they get a little bit of dust particles, figure where it could be. You can search, you can search to find that on different places in Metropolis. Maggie, being a good cop, realized this might be something close, something she might need to see. So this is one of the first people that actually rode on Superman's back in the, or at least I don't know, like I could be wrong. They kind of stayed away from that, where Batman would ride on Superman's back, or like ride horsey on this midsection. So we have her, which works, and we're going to realize it's going to be checking out this church, which would probably be a good hideout, right? And as you watch, you hear something going on there. You hear some voices and something that doesn't quite sound human. And we got Jamie in this substance, so we know what's going to happen, right? She doesn't want to be in there. And then what's the name? Maggie pulls the guns out. Nope, don't blast. It could hurt the kids. And then this shot here, that's amazing right there. That's really cool. And they can't do anything because they're kids, so they don't want to hurt them. Skyhook is taking all of the kids that have run away and come to Metropolis and turn them into these weird sort of winged creatures, right? So then Superman decides, hey, there's a lot of dust here. I can cause a commotion and deal with the kids quickly. And Skyhook is out of here, but he leaves with the insurance policy. And as Skyhook goes, you have a feat that only works in comics. Maggie holds on, and they are all holding for their life, right? And Superman could have handled this, but she's, she don't want to lose her daughter, so she's like, all right, I realize. Skyhook is like, let me get rid of the kid, and get rid of both of them, and then Superman just had to save them, right? So Maggie gets the daughter, and she puts some He still has to wherewithal to use a gun to take out Skyhook, and Superman's there to save him. And which I always like a great page. So they like that, but they're not sure where Skyhook went. Right? And look how happy Maggie is. You see the kids, and there's nothing he can do with these kids. So there's some permanency to this thing. Whereas they saved the day, but they have a lot of kids to fix. Right? Don't even know if it's reversible. Right? So Superman drops off. Now this is, I'm going to show you, there's going to be another story I'm going to do, which is Adventures of Superman, where Superman has a big sort of argument with the father who's kept away. So we have the similarities that's going to happen in Adventures of Superman, but you're going to see the difference. And I don't know if I should even should I do that now? Maybe. It's the only way I can get into that. But I don't want to do that comparison yet. That's going to be there. So then drops off, and they're saying, hey, you see that the kid ran away, so it's hurting the kid and, and Maggie, right? So they said he'll reconsider the position, and the kid heard, but he's not sure. So obviously, this is playing up that in keeping custody, sole custody, Jamie is kind of a latchkey kid, right? Where she's staying home, and we see regretfully something's going on with her too that she's gonna keep secret. So she's kind of, this story hasn't ended yet. So it's a powerful way to end that. This sort of breakup has kind of pushed these characters into this turmoil, right? So we did that. That was right. It's like 15 minutes, right? So before we do the action, I know you guys probably just want the action. We're going to get to Love's Labor, right? And we don't look at that. You're going to be spoiled, right? So, there's some action in here, right? So we got Maggie and a Terrible Turpin together. And Maggie's obviously very confident in her job that they can take out this guy. But the Turpin gets in the way, the danger, and Barrage, which I thought looked cool, even though they tried to make him as funky and terrible looking as possible. So I was like, wait, no, we should have some more of this character. I'm not looking at his private times, and they take out that character, and Dan is really hurt. The Turpin who was in, you say, do I have that here? I do have it somewhere here, right? That should be here. Here's the cover. This is Dan Turpin. Sorry, guys. He's from New Guys number 8, which is the story, The Death Wish of Terrible Turpin. See, The Death Wish of Terrible Turpin, right? And that's Dan Turpin, who sees it's Dan Turpin who jumps into the fire against Calabac and near death, and still throws bombs at him. And the hook of the story is that Orion wasn't supposed to get involved in combat, but obviously that was just to have us worry about this human character dying. So Kirby was trying to get some human characters into this thing, so we'd have this guy, and the Glory Boat also had some stuff in there. So one of the best stories of the New Gods. So here he is again. This time he's a little worse for wear. He winds up in the hospital. His daughter's there. Maggie comes to see him, and she kind of says something here, don't go chasing too many candy stripers. And he gets the idea that, you know what, like she's been and she says, keep taking her to come to see me. So he he keeps coming to check him out since he saved her life. And he gets the wrong idea, right? So he's like, his wife had passed, been many years, even though there's a big age gap. And this is to add some of the emotion to it. Him thinking about Maggie, and gets to her address and like, wow, how can she afford this? Wait a second, there's two names on here. We got Sawyer and Raines. And then we meet Toby Raines, and she's, I think, a news reporter in the DC universe. And she's very cordial to Dan. Like, takes the flowers. She knows about what Dan is going through. She has no problem taking Turpin up to see Dan Turpin to see Maggie. And Maggie is up there sunning and said, hey, we're not alone. And she's really surprised that Dan Turpin's there. But then she kind of calms down and she talks with him, and she's so happy to see him. I said, hey, we should, go to dinner or something like that, because I don't really know you as well, even though we work together. And then Turpin asks, hey, I need some time alone, right? So he's like, okay. And they're talking. He said, what's on your mind? And they have a moment together, talking about the unstoppable Dan Terrible Turpin, the unstoppable cop, right? And then he came over there, since they've been connecting over these couple weeks while he's in the hospital, to marry, from her hand in marriage. And we see that, and we have this reaction from both of them, but we know that's not happening because they're obviously together. And Maggie's secretary tells Maggie that Turpin left a letter on her desk, and it's a resignation to go to a different department. And she balls it up. And they said, hey, there's some school kids in trouble. And then Maggie comes to see him. He's like, I'm cleaning up my desk. And she hands it back to him to throw it out. And she puts him back to work, and he's happy. So we got this fun sort of story connecting that, Maggie, Maggie broke this guy's heart, but they still can work together, right? So let's get to this annual, right? That's probably what you guys are here for. No, I don't know if I'm going to do this. I'm just going to quickly go through this, right? We have the Guardian, who we hadn't seen in a while. He's back, right? Then we get to what I don't know if we've seen the Cadmus project in this so far. So this is like kind of the first we've seen of it. We got like Karl and Renee Witterstadt is here. You see Superman saving some ordinary people, taking this gas truck up in the air. And Superman comes down, and his cape comes down, but then he's okay, right? You see some patch that came out of nowhere, right? Trying to figure this out. And they're actually having the Guardian after Superman, right? So we have the Newsboy Legion, and I think this is the first we've seen of them since Kirby had them in his Jimmy Olsen's, right? So this is kind of dealing with it like it's a post-crisis, like things are different. Whereas some things like the Legion, as I showed you, the Doom Patrol, the Titans, there's no gap in the timeline. It's just straightforward. So when Jimmy Olsen sees them, they kind of run off, right? So right, so we're saying this is where we kind of say continuity is different, right? They haven't met the Newsboy Legion. So then, and you see here where Ron Friends is kind of going to the hair slick back, but I don't think Byrne really killed himself on the slicking back of the hair outside of Man of Steel issue 1, or in issue 2, right? So Superman's getting into the story, and of course these kids trying to find a Newsboy Legion. They go into Suicide Slum, and of course there's a different kind of element there with the Newsboy Legion ready to fight. So they're just running around free in the Suicide Slum, and just having an eye opener as they go, right? And he realizes that he was a kid, and these guys are still kids when he first saw them, right? And as these guys try to attack the Newsboy Legion, the Guardian comes out of nowhere, right? And he takes them out, and it's almost as if he's like the Captain America of, because they had like Captain America avatars before, and I guess he already was that. So, but he had the dynamic of having the Newsboy Legion and getting them out of trouble, which is kind of the first Jimmy Olsen type series, right? And here we have the Superman meeting the Newsboy Legion, but he needs to look into what's going on here, right? And this we have a Marvel moment where he has some stuff that we don't know that somehow affects Superman. We have some Kirby type shots where what's the name is really like Captain America. So kind of a thing that Captain America might be able to do when he was first brought into the Marvel Universe, like strong enough to kind of knock a Thor or a Hulk off balance type of deal. But there's all these other crazy things that are happening here where Superman has a hard time catching up with the Guardian, and then there's some trick stuff that happens that hit him, and then like he touches a pole and somehow that gets electrocuted. But Superman's still Superman, right? So he's able to take all this. So I don't really like him just taking a pounding, which I think happened a lot in the pre-crisis era, where you just see him taking hits and then, hey, I can recover from it. So he gets kind of a little too overconfident. So these guys are still kind of fighting, and then the Newsboy Legion people are still trying to track these guys down, and they get in their whiz wagon, just bringing all the Kirby stuff back into there, right? So Superman, they finally stop. They suddenly stop fighting. And Superman is like, we can work this out together. So they go to all the stuff we've seen in the Kirby run. And this is bringing all the Kirby stuff into play, right? All this stuff that, so this is kind of saying that none of that stuff happened, where Byrne was kind of trying to say that stuff happened, just not in the order that you remembered it, right? So we have the Mountain of Judgment, and Superman thinks he can handle it, but he can't. And he was out for a while, which is like, I don't know. Not sure about that, but he was out for a while. We get to meet the leader of the Harrys, and they connect all the Cadmus Project. And as we get there, we realize that the head DNA alien everyone's being controlled by sleaze. Right, so the sleaze is behind everything, right? So Superman with the Newsboy Legion and the Harrys and all these guys, they go to save. I forget his name. It's coming up soon, right? So Superman was showing Superman grunting. They're showing him struggling to open the door, which is fine. Right. So he goes in there. Duplex. That's a duplex, right? Sleaze has used his power over all these people, and he's got a duplex there, right? And of course, and here's another thing where it's like, where Stern really would be, where Byrne had to kind of hide some of the points in there. Stern could say it, right? So he's duplex. He's like powerful, isn't he? Oh no, he's talking about himself. That his power is strong as about to say if that was talking about Superman's powers, right? But it's Sleaze saying his powers is as strong as Sleaze's own power, right? So the Newsboy Legion, they come in with the whiz wagon. Superman's fighting back, and he uses that power against Sleaze, and we see how Sleaze escaped, but Sleaze can tear him into some sort of energy, but he can, that's how he got out of the last story, right? So here we see that the Newsboy Legion are actually clones, similar to the Guardian, where the Guardian it was killed, and now they're not as Kirby had it, where they were the sons and the kids of the Newsboy Legion. They're actually clones of them, just like what's name, because obviously it's a DNA project. There was a lot of stuff that was already in there with cloning. So for them to be exactly like the kids, they kind of, in this sort of post-crisis, they're clones, right? So there we go, right? So I kind of didn't like that the Captain America, or sorry, the Guardian fight with Superman went on as long as it did, even though it was kind of the cap from, the Guardian is kind of the cap from, what was it? It's kind of the cap from, what's that stage? Kind of the cap from the DC Universe, right? Or the cap that was in the, let's see. The cap that was in the early Marvels, where he was kind of had super strength. But we have that stuff that Friends was drawing. We have the Harry's, the habitat of the wild area of these outsider guys. And where is the Guardian in here? Let's see if I can find the Guardian. Oh yeah, the forearm terror. I used to love that, right? But here, this is a simple thing. So at this point, Jimmy Olsen was connected with the Newsboy Legion, and they were just the kids of the original ones with Flipper Dipper added, right? So then now they're clones. So there we go. We did it, got through it. You got to see some action by the great Ron Friends and Roger Stern. All right, Spin Rack out.